On today's show, another league-wide honor for Dyson Daniels on the defensive side of the floor, plus the rest of my chat with Will Rucker on the NBA draft and some trade-up prospects on the perimeter in this class. We'll get into all that and more coming up.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1981 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Thursday evening into Friday here in late May. And today's podcast is brought to you by the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook. And right now, if you're a new customer, get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins at FanDuel. I also want to encourage you at the top of the show, as I always do, to make sure first listen each and every day here at Locked On Hawks. Check us out and subscribe to this podcast anywhere you find your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. And be sure to tell your friends, family, colleagues, etc. about this program. And as I sort of led into already, I will be joined once again by Will Rucker in a few minutes to finish up my conversation with him. But in the meantime, there was some news that happened on Thursday that will lead the podcast. That was the fact that Dyson Daniels was officially named first team all defense alongside Evan Mobley, Lou Dort, Draymond Green, and Amen Thompson. I personally thought that Ivica Zubac should have been first team, but alas, not a Clippers podcast. No surprise for Dyson, of course. So expected to make this for a long time. It would have been a surprise and really a shock if he didn't make first team. He was actually on all 100 of the ballots for this award. He got 91 first team votes and 9 second team votes. If you missed this, by the way, it's now positionless. So that change happened about, I think it was last year, where it's not really, there's no position. Basically, you rank 1 to 5, and then you go to the next team. So the only other player that got all 100 votes somewhere on the 2 ballots was Evan Mobley, who, of course, won Defensive Player of the Year over Dyson. So Dyson finished number 2 in DPOY voting and number 2, basically, in all defense voting. No surprise there. I won't go through all of the accolades, the things that Dyson did. We've done it a lot on this podcast already, but if you missed any of it, he was the first player to average 3 steals per game since 1991. He set a new Hawks franchise record for total steals in a season with 229. That was the most steals by any player in the league in a season since 1996, so about 30 years ago. He also had the largest gap between number 1 and number 2 in steals in a season in the history of the NBA. He had 98 more steals than any player in the league. That's well over 1 per game more than anybody else. He also set the record for deflections in a season since the NBA started tracking that stat a few years ago. Also is the first player with 200 steals and 50 blocks or more since Scottie Pippen, an all-time great defender in 1995. And finally, he led the league in total steals and blocks, which is the stock stat. That's a very rare thing for a guard to do in any season, and obviously he did that as well. And on the Hawks side, became only the 5th player in the history of the franchise to be named first-team all-defense, and the first one since Dikembe Mutombo in 1998. So obviously, that's a historic season for Dyson, especially in his first year as a full-time starter. Awesome story, most improved player, DPOI runner-up, and now the final of the awards for him is the first-team all-defensive honor for a very deserving case. All right, before we get back to Will, it is Thursday evening, as I said before on the podcast, as I'm recording this podcast. We're heading into Memorial Day weekend. I am going to be traveling, actually, for a family wedding, so it is still quiet on the front office news front right now. That could change at some point. Also, all NBA teams are going to be announced on Friday nights. I don't think that Trey is going to make it, but he certainly could. I would say it's non-zero chance. Just keep that in mind if you want to look out for that. There are some implications there for him contractually, all that fun stuff. But it would, if you follow the history of this podcast closely, it'd be pretty on brand for some news to break over the weekend when I am not plugged in. So keep that steady in the meantime. But alas, hopefully you enjoyed this week of episodes. This is actually the 5th one of the week, and I'll have much more to come next week once I return from my travels. For now, I want to remind you also that the first half of this chat that I did with Will Rucker dropped on Wednesday evening into Thursday, and that included discussions on Common Malawak, Derek Queen, and Con Kneppel. Kind of this hour-long discussion basically on trade-up candidates for the Hawks. Not that they have to trade up. Keep that in mind. I'm actually probably lower on trade-ups than most people are, but some interesting players in this range. And now this is the part 2 of that chat with Will, and it begins with Texas guard Tre Johnson. Also hits on Ace Bailey, VJ Edgecombe, and Kasparas Jakucionis during the conversation as well. And Will was awesome to talk to and studies this stuff very closely. I would also plug his work at Liberty Ballers, read all of that stuff as well. He's writing about all these players and much more draft coverage coming. I promise you that. We are 5 weeks away basically to the draft. It's all steam ahead basically from here. So stay tuned for that. Keep it locked here. Please subscribe to the podcast. And with that said, we will dive right back in now to myself and Will talking about the NBA draft. So beyond Kneppel, I want to ask about Tre Johnson because they're actually pretty similar size. Johnson has a longer wingspan, but they're pretty similar size, Kneppel and Johnson. Also, they are generally on the short list of people talking about the best shooters in the class. I have said, and I want to poison what you're about to say because I don't know where you'll go, but I really like Johnson's shooting. It's hard to not like it. I don't know about almost everything else, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I think there's just a lot of uncertainty beyond the shooting for me. But what do you make of him? People don't know this. He played at Texas for a year, 6'5" shooting guard type. But what do you make of Tre Johnson, and how are you kind of stacking him up as compared to guys like Kneppel, VJ, et cetera?
Like you said, the shooting is elite. He had one of the best shooting seasons for a freshman and for a prospect in general to come out in a long time. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. Pull-up threes, off-movement threes, off-screen threes, catch-and-shoot threes, off-screen mid-range jumpers, free throws, all that stuff. He was just top tier across the board in all those categories. He also has really good handle. He's able to get to his spots in the mid-range and from three. A lot of crossovers behind the backs. His handle's really tight. That stuff that flashed dating back to watching him at Link in high school. He's also I think he's a really good secondary playmaker. I think that his passing is a little underrated. I've seen people go both ways on that kind of. To me, I think he's a really good secondary playmaker. He's got the left hand, like I kind of touched on with some of the other guys earlier. He's got the left-handed, the right-handed skip passes. He's good at playing out of pick and rolls, out of DHOs, hitting guys on the roll or hitting guys popping and stuff like that. In transition, his passing flashes a lot, where he's throwing no looks and kind of manipulating the defense and stuff like that. So I think that those areas of his game are the definite big selling points if you're looking to take him super high in the draft. And like I touched on in my piece that I released yesterday, there's some definite concerns when it comes to the defense and when it comes to being able to get to the rim and finish at the rim. He only about 20% of his shots came at the rim. He only his half-court rim frequency was, I believe, 16% or something around there. Only finished like 46% of those attempts in the half court. So definite concern there. Those are all numbers that you would like to see be a lot higher, especially for a guy that's 6'6" with a 6'10" wingspan. And a guy that is a go-to scorer type. If you really are betting on his upside, he's going to have to be right now he's really just a 1-level, 2-level scorer as opposed to that 3-level scorer term that a lot of people like to throw around. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of that stems from his lack of burst on the ball. I don't think he's super quick. I think he struggles to get by some guys, especially more athletic defenders. So I think that's the biggest concern with him offensively. Defensively, a lot of times, to be honest, it can be ugly watching it sometimes. He's getting beat off the dribble by guys that you would think he wouldn't get beat off the dribble by. The engagement's not always there off the ball. He gets screened and he kind of just will die on the screen and stuff like that. So definitely some concerns there. There's times where he gets bumped. He's obviously not a real strong guy. Gets bumped off. Guys will get layups. There's awareness issues off the ball. He's got a long ways to go on defense. There are times here and there kind of randomly where he'll really it looks like he turns the intensity up and he'll get into a guy on the ball and kind of force a turnover or get a deflection. But that stuff is far and few between when it comes to as far as a lot of the other stuff. So definite concerns on the defensive end. And I think that you're kind of trying to, when you're kind of evaluating, trying to strike that balance. If he doesn't ever improve on defense, will the shooting and the scoring be just that special to where it kind of mitigates those things where we've seen with some other star guards in the past where, they bleed a lot on defense, but if they're going to give you 25 a night on good efficiency, you'll kind of live with it, especially and you can kind of build around it and insulate them in different kinds of ways. But especially early in his career, if he's going to go to a team, it depends on what team he goes to too. If he's a guy that they're not going to, depending on what other guys are in his position, stuff like that, or who his coach is, all kinds of different factors, he's going to have to improve defensively. And it's kind of trying to strike that balance of adding strength without losing some of that explosiveness or that off the dribble stuff because he already lacks a little bit in that area. So definite concerns there. I think that he is going. I still like him as a prospect. He's still a guy that I have in that kind of 6, 7, 8 range on my board. I think that the shooting is elite. I think that he's got an elite work ethic. All the intel on him as far as that stuff. He's a guy that's a tireless worker. A lot of people have talked about how they've seen him work out and stuff. And he is just a machine with as far as how hard he goes and how he just knocks down shots at a crazy rate. So I think that he's still a really good prospect, but definitely concerns there. I think that there's a little bit of I think that he has a safe floor as far as an offensive player. At worst, I think you can put him as a 6-man type off ball, just microwave scorer, shot maker, things like that, because he's going to shoot the ball at a high level.
Yeah.
But going to have to improve some of those strength things, being able to get to the rim on offense if he ever wants to reach a ceiling. And even some of his passing stuff that I do like, some of that is limited by the fact that he doesn't get in the lane a lot. So it's kind of he's kind of limited in the kind of passes that he can make and really draw on the defense and manipulation and stuff like that. But overall, I like him enough to still have him in my top 8 guys on the board. I think the shooting is that special, and I think that he's a really good prospect.
I don't want to overweight the college numbers because it's Texas had a weird offensive system. It just wasn't a fun team to watch play offense, in my opinion, to be honest with you.
I agree.
But he also, it's weird. Like, he shot 40% on high volume from 3, which is obviously just great, but also managed to be like 55% true shooting because he shot 40-something%. I think like 45% on 2s, and like took a lot of 2s, like some tough ones too. But like there is some inside the arc question about what's going to happen there. I have no concern about 3-point shooting at all. I saw what you saw too, but there were some flash passes. You love to see that. I wish I was more confident in either his inside the arc finishing or his defense. Just either one of those would be great for me to just have one more thing to latch on to. But you're right. I think even if nothing else works, he might be somebody like, I'm trying to think of like comparison, but like the shooting is just gonna play. I just don't. It might need to be like a different package how he gets to be efficient in the NBA, because if he's shooting the way he is inside of it, teams won't let him take this many 2s after a while. You know what I mean? Like the way he's wired now with the lack of efficiency inside the arc. But also I do buy it. And by the way, I've heard fantastic things about his workouts the same way you just mentioned. I want to say it was Sam Vecini said it was like the best workout he's ever seen, like a shooting workout from like a 19-year-old kid. Like he just was unbelievable apparently. So it's a workout. I don't want to overweight that either, but because the film says the same thing, it's like pretty easy to believe.
Yeah. And like you said, the struggles from 2, he was actually really good off screen from 2, but really bad off the dribble from 2. And a lot of that is not because of his touch or his shooting ability. That was because a lot of those were heavily contested because he couldn't get all the way to the rim and kind of just had to settle for that shot. Kind of some similar issues that Ace Bailey has had with stuff like that as well, just low percentage shots. And I think that it's going to be something that will be interesting to follow, interesting to see. I'm always a guy that's willing to bet on someone with psycho work ethic, but definitely some things he's going to have to iron out if he ever wants to reach his full potential or his upside.
I totally agree. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, and the NBA playoffs are in full swing right now with conference finals happening as we speak, and every single night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments all in one place. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a player having a true breakout, there's never been a better time to get on the action with FanDuel Sportsbook. They make it really easy to stay in the game at FanDuel, both in before tip-off stuff and live when the game is actually going on. They have player props, performance trends, and game parlays in one place, and they have more ways than ever for you as a fan to get in the action, play smart, and also win big. Especially true throughout the playoffs, of course, with so many high-level games, but it's also the case every single day of the year. They have offerings at FanDuel across the sports betting space, from over-unders, point spreads, money lines, game props, futures, player props, live betting, and same-game parlays. And also, they have every sport and league you possibly think of as well. That is, of course, headlined by the NBA. We talk about all the time on this podcast. Plus, they have the NFL, MLB, they have college sports, NHL, UFC, golf, tennis, soccer, both foreign and domestic leagues. They have boxing and everything in between. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time right now to sign up with FanDuel.com. And the place to go one more time here is FanDuel.com. Place your first $5 bet at FanDuel. If that first bet wins, that $5 bet wins, $200 in bonus bets coming to you at FanDuel. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. I do want to ask you at least briefly about the other 3 guys I kind of teased. I think, again, Ace Bailey and VJ Edgecombe are just like not going to be available to the Hawks. I don't think in any reasonable scenario. Maybe I could see one of those guys like falling to like 6 if something weird happens. But even then, the Hawks even getting there. I'm saving them for last because I don't think those guys are necessarily as likely, even if the Hawks wanted to trade up to get somebody. Do you? I know they're very different players. Do you have between the two of them? Do you have a lean on VJ versus? I know this is a Sixers thing that's happening right now in a lot of corners, and I'm sure you have an opinion.
The crazy thing is I have them ranked back to back on my board, and I've kind of
of course you do.
I've kind of went back and forth on which guy I have where. VJ, I just kind of worry about his ability to create in the half court against a set defense. His handle isn't as good as you'd want for a top 5 guard prospect. We've seen some guys progress leaps and bounds in that area more so recently than I feel like we've seen in the past as far as guys improving their handle and stuff like that. But definitely something of concern for him. His finishing at the rim, numbers at the rim are not great, especially for a guy that is thought of, and rightfully so, as a freak athlete. He kind of only knows one speed at times where he's going 90 miles an hour, and then his launching points, he'll jump from super far out and kind of try to float in and stuff like that. I think those are the biggest concerns. But obviously the big selling points, he's a really good defender, at the point of attack especially, good at navigating screens, is athletic, strong, uses his length, uses every bit of his 6'7" wingspan really well, gets off the floor super fast. I think he projects well as a shooter. Obviously, there were some times where he was up and down as far as his numbers, but I think if you look at the sample size dating back to high school and international play and stuff like that, I think that he projects as a good shooter with a little bit of versatility there as far as coming off screens, off moving a little bit, and off the catch. Obviously, we'll have to improve as a pull-up shooter if he ever wants to reach that kind of star upside that you're kind of looking for if you're taking a guy in the top 5. But there's definitely a lot to like there. I think he has a safe floor as a athletic defender, kind of slasher type of guy that's gonna shoot it. I think at least league average from 3 off the catch. He's kind of become more of a polarizing prospect to me than I thought he would be before the season started. But definitely another guy that I relatively like. I mean, I like the top 10 guys in this draft. I think it's really strong, especially compared to last year where I wasn't super high on those guys. So definitely some things to like there, some things that are kind of questionable. As far as Ace, another guy, he's the most polarizing prospect in the draft at this point. I didn't think he would be as it is, but then the Sixers get the 3rd pick, and with how Philly is, naturally just becomes more so that way. Ace, I've talked about it a lot and touched on it. A lot of people think he's that kind of go-to scorer. They see him as drawing the comparisons to Durant and McGrady and Paul George and Tatum. I don't think he's quite that level of prospect or player. Obviously, needs to improve the handle. Gets to the rim even less than Tre Johnson gets to the rim, and Ace is a 6'9" wing. Has issues getting to the rim. His finishing numbers are a little better than Trey's, but you'd expect that with a guy that's 6'8". But the lack of rim frequency, there's not a great precedent for guys that at that size not get to the rim that don't get to the rim at that type of frequency, kind of becoming 3-level scorers at the next level. If you look at all those other guys, Jabari Smith was a 13% rim frequency guy. Ace is 15%. I think his value comes mostly in his defensive tools, his athleticism, and his off-ball capabilities. There are times where he will explode for 30-point games where he's flying off screens and getting his feet set and knocking down shots. He's rising up over guys, hitting shots. I actually think that he is a better passer than people think. I think people talk about, he's a terrible passer. I just think he doesn't do it enough, which is the biggest issue. There's times where even dating back to him at McEachern in high school where he's running pick and rolls and he's making really advanced reads and passes. He showed that some at Rutgers as well. It's just few and far between. I think the feel is the biggest issue with him. His just knowing when, I feel like he kind of predetermines his moves sometimes. He'll get the ball, kind of predetermine his spot and kind of just make his mind up that he's going to shoot it regardless of what the defense does, regardless of things like that. But I obviously get the appeal. The upside is the upside. He's a 6'9" wing with a sweet stroke, with good vertical athleticism that is capable of going off for big scoring games. I think that I've compared him to my high-end upside comparison for him is Rashard Lewis. I think that he can be that type of player off the ball. And Rashard Lewis was a 2-time All-Star. I think that he's capable of getting to that level. But I also think that there is a world where he becomes kind of the wing version of Jalen Green, where you're kind of the highlights are great, the highs are really high, but the lows are really low. And is he going to be a consistent positive impact player? I think if he can really hone in on some of those defensive tools that he has as a weak side shot blocker and weak side rim protector and being active with his hands, jumping past lanes and stuff like that, when that stuff flashes, it's amazing. It's really good. There's times where he's stifled wings and really got down in stance and played really good defense. Not always consistent with that stuff, but I think he projects well as a defender at the next level based off everything I've watched. I think that defense will be something that he can lean on and be a calling card. I think him going to the right situation with the right coach, with the right people around him will be big for him. I've talked about while I like some other prospects more than him, I do think that Philadelphia would be a great fit for him personally, going into a team where he's not going to be asked to go score 30 points a game or to have to create on the ball a ton, where he can kind of lean into those off-ball stuff more and lean into being that wing defender and things like that. I think San Antonio is another place where would be a good fit for him as well. It kind of gets a little more murky to me. I think if you put him in Utah or Charlotte, I think that's kind of where things could, especially early on in his career, I think that his efficiency probably wouldn't be too great as a big-time on-ball, high-usage guy. But definitely a lot to like with him. Like I said, I've got him in that 6 to 8 range, 6, 7 range on my board. So obviously like him a ton and enough to keep him that high. But the concerns are the concerns. There's the highs are highs, the lows are really low. It's NBA draft, man. We're all trying to figure it out.
That's right, 100%. No, he's a really interesting case, and in some ways, like him being at Rutgers this year made it harder, I think, because the context was so bad at times, particularly when Harper wasn't around. Like, he already had some tendencies that were a little scary. Like, let's just be honest. He took some of the worst shots you've ever seen, like selection wise. Like he will just shoot, and that's his. I mean, he's a very confident kid. Like we saw that at the combine. Some of the interviews, some of the questions and the answers he gave. It's like, man, does he understand? And he's just a confident kid. I think he's going to be. He's a scorer. That's what he wants to be. I don't really see this comparison. If people that have wanted to be negative about him have compared him to Cam Reddish. And I'm saying that because it's a Hawks podcast, but I've heard that. I don't see that personally. I'm actually not a super huge Bailey person, but I don't see the comparison to Cam. Like, I think he was a much better college player than Cam, for instance. Like the offensive ceiling is way higher than Cam's ever was. I get why people got there if they don't like him, because Reddish was supposed to be the next big thing as a high school player. It just wasn't. Bailey was so much better in college than Cam was, though. Anyway, I'll be interested to see. I'm with you 100% about the way situation he goes to, because the flashes defensively were there. If you can get him to kind of be a good defender, like Rashard Lewis is a good comparison. I don't know if he's as good of a shooter as Rashard Lewis, but I do see that comp as like a pretty, like not a middle of the road. Like that's a great outcome. Obviously, like Rashard Lewis is a good player.
I said that. I think that's a really high end outcome for him.
Yeah, I can see it. I like him, but I like him, but I feel like I'm lower on him than the consensus, even though I like him. If that makes sense. There's some stuff to like. The shot selection is just gonna tear my eyes out sometimes, but I do understand there was some.
I'm definitely in the same camp when it comes to that. I'm lower on the consensus, but I'm not as low on him as some people are. I still have him firmly in the top 10. So I think Sixers Twitter thinks that I can't stand the guy, but that's Sixers Twitter. So
that's not. I mean, look, this how this. If you don't love a guy, you hate a guy. That's and on if you're online and there's no in between, I do this battle all the time. Before I let you go, if you got one more second, Kasparas Jakucionis. I don't really see the Hawks going for Kasparas Jakucionis as a trade-up guy, because I don't see the fit. It would be weird. But I'm not sure I'll talk about him again in depth. So I wanted to, while I know you wrote about him because I read it, what do you think of him as a prospect, even just beyond the context of Philly and all that stuff?
He is a guy that early in the season I had him in my top 5. The pull-up shooting, the playmaking out of pick and rolls, the things like that are super enticing. Then as the season kind of went on, he had the injury a little bit too that could have maybe played a factor. His efficiency kind of went down. He had some really mind-numbing turnover issues where he had some really high turnover games. and issues with that stuff. Obviously, not the best athlete in the world. Struggles to get a fight around screens and stuff like that too on defense. I touched on that in my piece that I wrote. Struggles to keep some smaller guards in front of him. He does have a good defensive IQ. He knows how to play the game in that area. He's a guy that I'm extremely intrigued by to see where he ends up. I still have him right at the end of my top 10. I have him, I think, number 10 overall on my board right now, because the shot making could be very, very good. I think it was 97th percentile pull-up jumpers from either from 97 in one, 63 in the other, from three and from mid-range. Can't remember which one was which off the top of my head, but the pull-up shooting stuff is great. The playmaking and flashes out of pick and roll. He's obviously got that signature step back. Loves it going left, can get it going right too. He's got a lot of really intriguing tools. I think that his baseline of skills and his feel for the game, I think, make him at least a rotation guard at worst. Not making the comparison, but maybe in the mold of like a Podzimski or a Ty Jerome, kind of that level of impact guy. I think that that's a pretty decent floor outcome for him. He's kind of a guy that I want to move up higher sometimes. But I'm just like, I don't know if I can do it because the concerns are definitely valid. I mean, he struggles. He actually had a pretty good free throw rate as well, which is another intriguing thing. But he struggles to get by his guy in isolations and stuff like that, especially towards the end of the year. He had issues with that. Defensively, the issues started to rise more, and then the turnovers. Teams just started blitzing him out of pick and rolls, and smaller guards started to get under him and ball pressure him really bad. And he would there was kind of times where he kind of got a little more flustered with that than I kind of thought he would, given his background and things like that. But definitely a guy that I still like. I'm really interested to see his career. I'm actually a big fan of his. I've been a fan of him for a few years. Dating back, I was excited when he ended up going the NCAA route to go to Illinois. So I'm interested to see. Yeah, I don't really see the fit with the Hawks, like you said, unless they make a trade that I'm not foreseeing them to make.
They'd have to love him and like really love him. I mean, that's the case with all these guys, honestly. Like, to get any of the guys that we talked about in this discussion, they're going to have to really love a guy and then go up and get him. I just don't see everybody else. It's an easier sell with the Hawks in particular than with Yakosonus. It's like everybody else, you can kind of see it.
Yeah, I agree for sure.
I like him. I like him overall. The turnover rate worries me, and he's not the best athlete. He's fine, but he's not. I worry about the defense. I'm glad you mentioned. I mean, I don't know if he's ever going to be good enough defensively if he doesn't become, I don't want to say star, but like if he's not like a real plus on offense, he has to he might have to kind of be a third guard kind of situation, which is fine. Like third guards are valuable, but if you're trading up into the top 8 or something, you probably don't want to do that for a third guard. So it's like you kind of your give and take there. I find it funny. I don't know if it's because I'm not reading the right things or whatever. Maybe it's because I'm in a bubble. I feel like he's not being talked about a lot anymore. Like early in the year, there was like a real wave of Yakosonus. Like he's in top 5s and people were really buzzing. It's gotten quiet to me. I don't know if I'm just not seeing it. But
yeah, for sure. I would definitely agree with that. He's kind of been a forgotten guy throughout this process. He's definitely a guy that I think could maybe wow in some workouts with some of his pull-up shooting and some of his feel and stuff like that. So I'm interested to see where he goes. I think he has kind of a wide range of where he could go. I could see him as high as maybe 7, 8 in that range, or I could see him maybe falling out of the lottery into the teens somewhere as well. So I'm interested to see what happens with him. And like you said on defense, he's kind of stuck in that kind of like tweener thing where he's not really strong enough to guard wings. And he's also not really quick enough to guard guards. And he has those screen navigation issues on the ball. There are times where he flashes where he'll get through a screen and get a good rear view contest and stuff like that. The motor stuff isn't really an issue. I mean, he's a guy that plays really hard. So definitely some stuff to work with there. But yeah, definitely some concerns. But there's a lot to like with the pull-up shooting and the pick and roll playmaking and stuff like that. And actually finished at the rim at a decent rate too. So he's a guy that I'm definitely interested to see how it plays out for him. I think situation and role early will be a big thing for him. And he's a guy I'm rooting for.
Yeah, of all the players that we talked about, he is probably the one that could just get to 13, and then the Hawks would have to look at themselves in the mirror and say, oh, is he the best player on the board? Because my general thing is like, within a tier, I'm fine drafting for fit within a tier. But if you have a guy that's like, he's the best guy available, you might just have to swallow and take him. Like, I don't know. He might. I think. I'm not saying it's impossible. Anybody else we talked about could fall to 13, but he's the one that I could actually like kind of see it. It's possible to me. So
yeah, I agree.
Might be a decision to make.
That's possible.
Well, thanks, man. This has been awesome. Will, I appreciate all the time. We went longer than I planned on. Hopefully, that didn't mess you up in any way.
I could go forever.
Yeah, we get going. I'm the same way. But no, while I know we referenced it a few times, you're writing at, I believe it's Liberty Ballers. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Plug anything you'd like to. Those are some awesome pieces. If you want to read more about these guys, I'd read several of them. But also plug anything you want. Twitter, anything you want.
My Twitter is Will_Rucker3_AD. Like you see on the screen. I write for Liberty Ballers. I've got pieces out on Dylan Harper, Kasparas Jakucionis, Derek Queen. I've got some stuff coming up on Kaman Malawach and Conconnepo as well. I'm super active on Twitter, putting stuff out there. Not just basketball. If you're a college football guy or NFL guy or boxing guy, I'm big into all that stuff too. So, yeah, follow me.
You're busy. I'm kind of the same way. I just follow all kinds of different things. But I really I've been impressed by the work. I've enjoyed it. I appreciate you doing this. I'm sure I'll bug you down the line. But one more time, thank you for doing this. I very much appreciate it. As everybody else listening to the podcast, please subscribe to this show. Check out Locked On Hawks anywhere you find podcasts. Follow Will across the board, and we'll see you all next time.